Hey guys, Matt here. Welcome to another video. So unlike most of the videos I've had this league, which were about crafting and whatnot, this video is actually going to be about mapping. So this video, as the title suggests, I want to talk about how I've been getting tons and tons of Headhunters. So these 3 Headhunters were actually dropped in a single map. Yeah, I'm not kidding. One map for 3 Headhunters. Now this is not a typical map and not something you can expect to happen every map or even close to every map, but on average I would say this strategy is going to net you a headhunter every other map or maybe every 3 maps. So every time you do 3 maps you'll be dropping a headhunter, which is worth about 50 exalts right now. So doing this strategy today, I've made about a mirror profit. Yesterday I've made about a mirror profit, and the day before I got really unlucky, so I didn't make all that much. But I've been doing this for about 3 days now, and I've made a pretty insane amount of profit for how long, for such a short amount of time, really. So let's go ahead and talk about how this is done. So there's going to be quite a few steps or quite a few components to this strategy, and the first part is going to be your build. Now this is going to be the most important part by far, because if you can't do the content, you can't do the strategy. So the first part is going to be talking about your build. Now, the requirement to be able to do this is basically to be able to do a full set of 24 T4 seeds in a map that is fully juiced up, meaning a map with about 100% quantity, potentially, you know, some scarabs, some xanamods, some this, some that, like some sextants, and even some unique watchstones as well, which I'm going to go over all through basically the whole video. But the first thing is that you need to be able to do the map. So given the fact that we're making we're doing a map that is fully juiced up, and that is also going to be a red map to be able to get that 100% quantity or even potentially more, you need a strong build. So what I'm playing right now is a Penance brand assassin. Looks like my DPS over here. My hideout, my tooltip in hideout. Let's wait for the inspiration charge to go away. I didn't mean to do that. But in hideout, I have 294,000 tooltip DPS. Now, what that actually looks like in game while I'm mapping this stuff, I don't really know. All I know is that I kill Cyrus at like 2 seconds. So it is a very, very high damage build. Now this is not a build guide, so I'm not going to go over really the build, but there's other builds that could do this just as fine. Basically you're going for a build that has a lot of damage and also decent amount of survivability. Now I would recommend whatever build you end up going with for this, you'll probably need a headhunter. It is pretty much mandatory. If you want to be doing 24 T4 seeds in a juiced up maps, you will need a build that uses a headhunter or an immortal build. That's like the 2 things you'll need, because if your build is not immortal, or if you're not playing like some summoner with like 8 million HP and life on block or something like that, you're just not going to be able to do it. And if you are playing one of those builds, you probably won't have the damage. So you're really looking at a headhunter build. Now that could be, say, Penance brand assassin like I'm playing. You could probably do this with Blade Vortex. You could probably do this with Ice Shot. You could probably do this with quite a few different builds. But basically, especially builds that take that take advantage of having a headhunter. And that's going to be the first thing you'll do. Because the idea here is that we're using as many possible T4Cs in one plot, and don't go trying to do multiple T4 plots in a row in the same map. It just won't happen. The instance will crash. So you want to be doing a maximum of 1 plot of T4 seeds per map, which is 24. Now this is very expensive. T4 seeds go for about 100 to 130, even 140 chaos, depending on the item level of the seed. So this is not a cheap strategy. The investment in every single map is over 20 exalts, but you are very, very easily making that money back with just the crafts from the seeds. So if I go ahead and look at my reforge here, you'll see that I have like 89 augment influence, 97 lucky augments, 36 removes, and 81 remove adds. So clearly, I'm making more than enough currency just from the crafts that I'm getting every map. Well, every 15 maps, I should say. Or every patch of T4Cs is what I should really say. To cover the price of the investment of the whole thing. So if I do drop, say, a Headhunter, it is pure profit. So if I drop 3 Headhunters in one map, it is a lot of profit, because everything else is also profit. So let's go ahead and talk about the strategy and how this is done. So there's a few things that you'll need. First off, as I said, to be able to do some T4s in a map. Second thing you'll need is basically a map. So the map is going to be a little bit special. It's going to be a Xana map. So what's special about the Xana map is that it has this modifier here that says prefix modifier Xana. The map's modifiers to quantity of items found also apply to rarity. So these maps are basically maps that are sold directly by Xana. So you can purchase them from Xana herself, and they are sold identified. And that comes from basically doing the Xana dailies here. As you can see, I have like 51 of them. And after I do the Xana daily, say I do a red Xana daily right now, then Xana's shop will reset, and she will sell some new maps. And when she sells some new maps, there's a chance that one of them is going to be a Xana map with this Xana mod. Now, why is this important? Well, because the map's modifiers to quantity also apply to rarity, means that if we are getting maps with about roughly 100 quantity, for example, let me see if I have some laying around. For example, if we take this map over here, it has the Xana mob, the map's modifiers to quantity applies to rarity, and there's 100 quantity on the map. Meaning, if the map has 139 rarity, and this map, now the quantity also applies to rarity, there is now 239 rarity. Now, we can juice this up a lot by using the new scarabs, the new winged scarabs. So by using a winged scarab here, this adds 250% more unique items found in the area. So this is really where it becomes insane, because this is basically a 2.5 times multiplier on your map. Meaning, if you were supposed to drop 100 uniques in your map, you are now dropping 250, which is absolutely nuts. Now, what else can we do to maximize the value of these Xana maps? So basically, if you want to get as much rarity as possible, we need to get as much quantity as possible. So how can we do this? Well, one of the first things we can use is basically going to be unique watchstones, after the scarabs, of course. Scarabs are basically mandatory. The winged scarabs, of course. The second thing is going to be to use the unique watchstones, both Irresistible Temptation, Territories Unknown, and Misinformation. So Irresistible Temptation will basically add a random prefix to your map. So you need to be able to play a build that can do all map modifiers, pretty much. Now, if your build can't do something like, say, Reflect, well, it is easy to take care of Reflect through the use of a Sextant. So for example, I have the Sextant here. Actually, it looks like I don't have any of the Sextant. Yeah, there you go. A Sextant like this, players and their minions cannot take reflected damage. So by using this Sextant, I make sure that even if there's Reflect on my map, there is no problem. I'm never risking a map. I can always run any map because of this Reflect Sextant. Now, the next thing you'll need is basically this one here, which is basically the opposite of the +1 prefix, which is Territories Unknown, and this adds you another suffix on your map. So you, again, need a build that can pretty much do all map modifiers. For example, my build, there is only one map modifier that I cannot really do, and that is no regen. That being said, there's always ways around no regen, such as what I typically do is use a mana flask. So if I use a mana flask, all of a sudden no regen doesn't matter anymore, because I don't really need regen. I have leech for my life, and if I have a mana flask for mana, I'm perfectly fine. Now that's going to be different for every build, and the map mods which you cannot roll are going to be different for every build. That being said, most of them can be taken care of through the uses of Sextant. So the next thing we'll use is a Misinformation, which gives you +1 to monster level of area, meaning your map is +1 tier, which doesn't matter because technically the tier of the map for us doesn't matter as long as it's a red map, because red maps can roll better modifiers which lead to more quantity, therefore more rarity. But the actual modifier that matters is the percent increased effective modifiers on non-unique maps. So percent effective modifiers on non-unique maps means that, for example, if your map has 30% more attack and cast speed, now it has 40% more attack and cast speed, pretty much. So it makes your maps a lot harder. So for example, a level 12 temp chains or something becomes like level 15. So it makes the maps harder to use, but it also makes the rewards on the maps multiplied by the percentage as well. So if your map had 130% quantity, or sorry, 100% quantity on it, all of a sudden it has up to 130% quantity, which also gets transferred to an extra 30% quantity to your rarity, which is really big. So those are basically the mandatory things. Now, what you can do, and what I've been doing, what I think leads to, honestly, better rewards, is also to go with the unidentified version of this. So there's a sextant which is not that rare, which gives you 25% quantity of items found in unidentified maps, and I believe this goes up to 20. I think this goes up to 30%. Yeah, for the awakened sextants. But I would say it's not worth it. Just use the prime sextants because they're like 2 per chaos. They're insanely cheap. So once you have that on there, let's go back to here. This gives you 35% quantity, or sorry, 25%, and an unidentified map baseline already gives you, I believe, 30% quantity. So if you use this watchstone alongside an unidentified maps, you are getting 55 or even 60% quantity bonus on your map, which also applies to your rarity bonus, meaning that is a lot more items. If you had, say, a map with 100% quantity, all of a sudden it's 160, and if you run it with misinformation and all that other stuff, it becomes over 200. And another thing that you can do is use the prophecies, which are basically tempests, and these give you an extra, I believe, 30% when they proc, so you get another 30% there. So it is possible through the uses of all these things to basically get maps that go all the way up to 300% quantity and 400% rarity on the map. Now, that alone is not enough to drop Headhunters like crazy. That's not enough. But what is enough is the fact that T4 collectors basically have a compounding, if you will, or an exponential more multiplier of rarity and quantity on themselves the more T4 seeds you put into them. So if I put, say, 2 or 3 T4 seeds in a collector, chances are I'm not going to get that many items. But the more T4 seeds I put in the same collector, the game basically multiplies the rewards, so that if you're able to do a collector with 24 T4 seeds, you are getting literally like 2,000 plus uniques. It is absolutely insane. If you don't believe me, you can have a look at my stream, my stream VODs. It is ridiculous. So I'll go ahead and show you guys the clip of the last map of the day that I did, where I got 3 Headhunters, just to show you guys kind of what it looked like. And there is a sea of unique items. So this is basically just the jewels. Now I'll go ahead and show you guys a non-corrupted map that I did, because you'll see all the items from the collector. This is how many unique items drop. And this, you can see that you're not seeing some of this off stream, and I'm sure I had already deleted some stuff at that point. But there are tons and tons and tons and an insane amount of items. Now, there's 2 ways to run these. You can decide to go with you can decide to go with either corrupted or non-corrupted. So what I mean by that is there is this sextant here, which is actually very, very rare, which gives you unique monsters drop corrupted items. Now, the T4 seeds are considered unique monsters, meaning if you use that sextant paired with a collector of 24 T4 seeds, every one of these 2,000 items or whatever are dropping corrupted. As you can see, 3 of my headers are corrupted. Now, there is a disadvantage to that. There's potential to drop Headhunters that will be corrupted and bricked. So like rare Headhunters, meaning you just lost 50x. But there's also an advantage of that, which is to get a bunch of different items with corruptions already on them. For example, this Unnatural Instinct with 40% damage. Now, I've easily made 200 to 300 exalts from corrupted items from doing this strategy. For example, the Frozen Trail, which is a jewel used for cast on crit, with corrupted blood on it, sells for 6.5 to 7 exalts, and I've dropped like almost 10 of them. I've dropped many of them. So there's potential for bricks, but there's also great potential for corruptions. So for example, I've sold today a Carcass Jack with percent damage on it for 2 exalts. I've sold Mjolnirs with Fortify on hit for 5 exalts. I've sold a ton of different items with corruptions on them that, in my opinion, make up for the potential bricked Headhunters. Now, if you're wondering how many bricked Hunters you get, well, essentially, when you corrupt an item, there's 4 different things that can happen. Either nothing happens, meaning you get a Headhunter with no corruption on it, such as like this one. Either you get a white socket on the item. Now, this is a belt, so there is no white socket. So what happens? Nothing happens. So 50% of the time, nothing happens. Now, the other thing that can happen when you corrupt an item is that the implicit changes, such as this one here, which change into percent life. And then the last thing that can happen is that it bricks, it goes rare, and that is 25% of the chance, 25% chance. Meaning, if you're using the strategy to farm Headhunters, every 4th Headhunter you can expect to be bricked, aka rare, aka unsellable or unusable. Now, in my opinion, that is worth it. If Headhunters were, say, 100 plus exalts or so, I would say don't do it corrupted. That being said, since there's a lot of items which hold a very large amount of value if corrupted properly, compared to the value of Headhunters right now, which is only 50 exalts, I would say going with the corrupted version is absolutely worth it. You'll get, say, this like chess pieces, like for example this Victorios here, which only has 11% increased aura effect, so I don't want that actually. But you'll get some really good corruptions. Let's see. So this Victorios, for example, is +2 AoE gems with 15% effective knockers aura from your skills. So this, for example, is worth like 5x. And if I was to 6-socket it and 6-link it, which would cost me about 10 exalts, I could probably sell it for 30. So there's a lot of things that drop that hold a lot of value when corrupted that, in my opinion, make it much worth it compared to just dropping more Headhunters. So using this strategy, I've dropped over 10 plus Headhunters in the last 3 days. That being said, obviously my last map today, dropping 3 of them was absolutely insane. Before that, I had only dropped, I dropped 2 only, only dropped 2 in my day. But the thing is, these maps take a while to do. And they take a while to set up, because to grow these T4 seeds, you need to go through 15 maps. Now, what's cool about this strategy, though, is that if you do the corrupted version, it actually drops you an insane amount of rare maps. So the thing is that it drops you basically unique maps that get corrupted and that get changed into unique maps, that get changed into rare maps. So as you can see, I've got hundreds of T14s, T15s, and T16s, and I farm 0 maps. My map pool only ever goes down because I don't actually farm the maps. I basically just go in there, go to the seed cache, get the seeds, sell the seeds in bulk, the T1 seeds, and then I buy T3s and T4s in bulk to be able to sustain doing this. And within the map, let's see if I can show you guys actually real quickly. You'll see that if you look at the last map I did today, which was a corrupted one, you'll see that there is a ton of different maps that drop. So my filter only shows the better maps, if you will, because I don't want to see bad maps. But for example, these are some of the maps that I see, and as you can see, there's like 50 plus maps, and these are all good maps: Atolls, Underground Seas, Strand, Dunes, Promenade, stuff like that. So very, very good maps. And other than these good maps, there's also like 100 plus bad maps that are not shown. So if you intend to be doing this, I would highly recommend making really good filters or just using mine. So I'll have a link in the description of this video with a link to a Go file where you can download my filters. My filters look something like this. So in the link, you'll have basically the filter armor and shit, which is a filter for corrupted armors. You'll have a filter for maps and headhunters, which only show the good maps and headhunters. You have a filter showing you only jewels with corruptions, and Viridian jewels for potential unnatural instincts. You'll have a ring and belt filter and a weapon and flask filter. So my filters are really basically mandatory, because one of the things that happens is if you have too much stuff on your screen, the game will crash. So you really need extremely strict filters to be able to do this strategy. But that is pretty much the strategy, and every step of the way, everything that you need to min-max it. I would advise going with Awakener level 8, because more quantity, I guess, and then using the sextants. Personally, my build, I use the reflex sextant, the corrupted sextant, and then the unidentified more quantity sextant. And then the last sextant that I tend to use, since my build does cold damage, is the players and monsters take 10% increased cold damage, because that basically gives me more damage against the monsters. And I don't know if you've ever done a full collector of 24 T4 seeds, but they have an insane amount of life and an insane amount of damage. They basically one-shot you with an auto attack, and they take forever to kill. But with a good solid build that uses Headhunter, you get proximity shield, you're basically immortal. So that's that. Now, if you'd like to see it in action, drop by the stream. I've been doing this for a few days, and I'll probably be doing it for a few more days. But other than that, that'll be it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Before I go, though, I want to say a huge shout out to my supporters. Mario, Luro, Gaikona, Kfish, Legend of A, Dr. Radu, Scott, Eric, and Cassicus. So, of course, anybody else who wishes to remain anonymous, and anybody else who has supported me in the past, big thank you to you guys. And hopefully you guys go farm some headhunters. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.